Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Today is Season 3, Episode 48. We're going to be going over the rematch with the Ravens. Today I am by myself because John had a load of issues with his computer and with Adobe. And so can we get a rip in the chat for John? Because he will not be joining us today. He had a lot of problems. We miss you. We miss you out here, John. Anyway, last week we didn't have enough time to get to our pick'em section for Week 8. And so I'm going to go over it now. Thursday Night Football, we already went over. So we're going to start with the 9:30 London game. This was the Eagles at the Jaguars. Really nothing much to add. I mean, Calais Campbell should have had a sack on Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz put on some nice moves. The Eagles covered. Me and John both got that right. Moving to the Broncos versus Chiefs, we thought that both the Chiefs were going to cover the spread by 10. They didn't. It's a division game. It was hard to pick, but both of us got it wrong. Moving on to Redskins at Giants. Man, that number 26, I guess, doesn't age, really. Adrian Pearson went off in that game. Redskins won it, and the Giants they're playing for that first overall pick. It's just simple as that. Moving on to the Seahawks at Lions. John, if you're listening, thank you, because if you guys didn't listen to the podcast where we did our pick'ems for that, I had the Lions covering at first, and then John called me out because I never side with the Seahawks, and I picked them. I switched my pick just because he said that, and the Seahawks ended up winning outright, and he picked the Lions to cover, so he got that wrong. So I'm going to rub that in while he's not here. Moving on, Buccaneers at Bengals. This game pissed me off. I was so happy. I was like, why did John pick the Buccaneers plus 3.5? That's such a small spread. And the Bengals were blowing them out. Jameis Winston had thrown 4 picks, and they benched him for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And first of all, he nearly mounted the biggest comeback I've ever seen. Like, it was amazing. It was incredible. But it put them so they finished within 3.5 points, and John was right. And I think there was some voodoo behind that, because I don't know how he saw that coming. I'm still mad about picking that game wrong. Moving on, Jets versus Bears. I was bored. I didn't really even watch it. I picked the Jets plus 8 for giggles, and they did not. The Bears covered in that one. Moving on to Ravens at Panthers. This one really surprised me. I felt like the Ravens were a better team. Like, I thought that they were going to come out and win that one, and they didn't. They came out and they played like trash. They let the Panthers work them all around the field, and it just really didn't work out in their favor. John picked the Panthers to win outright. Smartly, apparently. They won 36-21, but I did not. I picked the Ravens to win, and it surprised me how bad they lost. Colts at Raiders. Yeah, the Raiders are playing for that first overall pick, all right. They are incredibly bad. Like, very, very bad. Me and John both picked the Colts to cover, and they won 42-28. And Marlon Mack is breaking out. Colts are on their bye week, but Mack has had two weeks of straight running over people. I want to see him against a really good team, though, next, because he might be breaking out. Anyway, moving on to the 49ers at Cardinals, the trash fest, the loser fest, if you will. Me and John both picked the 49ers to win, and the Cardinals ruined their chances at that first overall pick by winning. I mean, they're still in it. They're not out of it, but they won 18-15. Moving along, Packers at Rams. Me and John both knew that you can't rule out Aaron Rodgers. That spread was way too big for Aaron Rodgers, and we both got it right with the Packers falling within 9.5 points. It was a really good game if you guys watched it. Unfortunately, some stupidity by Ty Montgomery, which got him traded, or at least partially probably got him traded, allowed the Rams to run away with it 29-27. Anyhow, moving on to the next game, It was Saints at Vikings. Also, a very good game from start to finish, I felt. It was really weird because it felt like the Vikings had all the momentum at first, and then just the Saints kept forcing turnovers, and they ended up winning. And I got that right, and John picked the Vikings to win, and he got it wrong. The game ended up finishing 30-20 in the Saints' favor. Really, really good game in my opinion. Then for Monday Night Football, the Patriots versus the Bills. We didn't actually see the Patriots destroy them like we were expecting, but the Patriots still covered. But like for a while, the Patriots weren't really doing much on offense. Which is concerning. I mean, the Bills, give it to the Bills defense. They played pretty well. That offense is abysmal to say the least. But that really wraps up the pickup session for last week. I'm gonna do another one for this week for week 9, but. Let's get into this game. The Steelers take on the Ravens for the second time for the rematch. And let's get into some of the injuries going into this game. For the Steelers, Artie Burns has an ankle injury and Cody Sensabaugh has a toe injury, and both are questionable for this game. Sensabaugh practiced in full on Friday, while Burns was limited after getting hurt in practice. Then also, they have Marcus Gilbert with a knee injury. He is doubtful, so we're expecting Filer to start again. Then for the Ravens, it's much longer. Guard Bradley Bozeman, Alex Collins, Marlon Humphrey, Tony Jefferson, wide receiver Jordan Lasley, Alex Lewis, and C.J. Mosley are all questionable. It is interesting to note that Humphrey, Jefferson, Lewis, Lasley, and C.J. Mosley could all be game time decisions after not logging a full practice all week. Then for the Ravens, both starting tackles, Ronnie Stanley and James Hurst, and then backup linebacker Tim Williams are out for this game. So let's go into the series history a little bit. The Steelers currently lead the all-time series 27-22. The last result obviously came week 4 of this year, where the Ravens won 26-14. Which means the current streak is a loss one for Pittsburgh. And in the postseason, the Steelers are 3-1 against them. But now let's get into a little bit of the preview here. Let's start with the offense. It's a very tough one. That's just the best way to put it. It's a tough one for the offense. This is likely the best defense in the league right now, and the Steelers need to come in and find a way to dismantle it. Per usual, Roethlisberger is going to be important in making the Steelers' offense happen, but I see a lot of importance for Randy Fichtner in this game. It would be great if the offense could get off to a hot start in this game because through his play calling. Even getting 3 points on the first drive would be big, as the Steelers really haven't had much success in the first quarter, let alone their first drive this year. In fact, they've basically been non-existent. The way they play in the second quarter of games is got to be how they perform the entire game to beat this stout defense. I mean, they definitely aren't working at full strength, the Ravens defense, which is in the Steelers' favor. If they had the worst possible case scenario, the best case scenario for us, they could be without starters Marlon Humphrey, C.J. Mosley, and Tony Jefferson for the day, which would hurt them pretty badly. But for now, I expect them all to play because this is a matchup they know they can't afford to miss. This is a big one. With a loss here, the Ravens' chances of making the playoffs become very slim, falling even farther behind the second-place Bengals. Anyhow, though, despite not having many injuries, the Ravens' defense will get to face a Steelers' offense that's not completely at full strength. Missing starting right tackle Marcus Gilbert, who, as I said, will be replaced by Matt Filer for the second straight week. Ultimately, I think this is going to hurt the run game the most. As I said it before in the midseason review episode, I truly believe Gilbert has been the Steelers' best run blocker this year of the starting offensive linemen. Hopefully, though, we could see the same thing we saw from last week, where Filer barely allowed even pressure off his side, and James Conner was rushing just fine. We saw that against a pretty okay defense in the Browns. I do have confidence in Filer. We've seen Mike Munchak coach guys step up before, and to repeat it, we literally saw it last game against the Browns' solid defense. I think Filer can do it again. Now let's talk about the receiver matchups. I feel like this is where it gets pretty rough. Jimmy Smith has been Antonio Brown's kryptonite, and I'm a bit worried for that matchup because it never seems to go AB's way. it just really gets worse from there, if I'm being honest with you. If AB is shadowed by Jimmy Smith, which if I'm the Ravens, that is exactly what I'm doing. Marlon Humphrey or Tavon Young gets to go against Juju, and Humphrey was really solid against AB in the Ravens' first matchup. Maybe because he is a little banged up, he won't perform as well, but I'm not so sure. Then we just have a question mark at who's going to step up and be that number 3 guy. Justin Hunter may have the speed advantage against either Brandon Carr or Anthony Levine, but he's just not that good. James Washington has supposedly gotten more snaps than normal in practice this week, but he wasn't even active last week, so who knows what will happen there. And then Switzer just isn't better than Carr or Levine. It's just simple as that. It's really just not good matchups across the board. Carr's been playing great this year, and I feel like he outmatches all of the Steelers wide receiver 3 guys. Just not a good matchup at all. That's not even taking into account the Ravens' great safeties, Tony Jefferson and Eric Weddle, back there to help. This is just one of those few games that will ever occur where the Steelers' wide receivers may be outmatched. That may make it so Vance has a good day, though, because if all the wide receivers are being blanketed, I trust Vance to be even the best of linebackers because of his speed and versatility as both a blocker and pass catcher. That's really what I'm hoping for. That and some good play from the other tight ends as well, trying to try and draw some attention from the wide receivers. That, and I also think James Conner coming out and pass catching in this one is going to be big. I feel like James Conner might not have the ground game you'd want, not like his October ground games, but I feel like he might contribute in the air in a big way. But anyhow, let's move on to the defense. Honestly, defense, please. We really need you in this one. We need you to step up bad. Y'all have played pretty solid these past few weeks, but this is a very important one, and you guys have the easier job this week. That is for one reason, or really 2 big reasons. The Ravens are without both starting offensive tackles and one of their starting guards. I'm sorry. One of their starting guards is banged up. They have both their starting guards playing. So pass rush needs to hit home. I'm going to be disappointed if he doesn't because there's no excuse from either side of the line as why they can't. I'm looking for big things out of Dupree, Watt, Tuitt, Chicolo when he's out on the field, and especially Hayward. They're going against Orlando Brown and Jermaine Illuminor. Brown being a rookie who has started the past 2 games for Hurst, and Illuminor having been cut by the Ravens in September, brought back to the practice squad and only elevated to the active roster last week. Illuminor is likely to be the left tackle too, as that's what he's played last week when Stanley got hurt. So I'm looking at you, Hayward. If Hayward can't beat that man at least once for a sack in this game, I am likely giving up on Hayward for the season. Bud Dupree's speed advantage should help too, and I think he may even be able to notch a sack here if the Steelers decide to rush him a lot. The other side I personally think isn't as easily, but I still expect pressure. Brown was originally thought as a late first round or second round prospect until a poor showing at the combine. I feel like he's played more like that second round guy than that he was supposed to be, but still not amazing. If Tua plays like the way he has, Brown won't be playing good enough to stop him. Now let's change it up and go to the defensive backs before we finish the rest of the front 7. And really, this game is about containing speed. John Brown is still my biggest worry. The Steelers don't have a fast cornerback that can stop him. I doubt there will be any shadowing going on for the Steelers, so Brown is likely to see everybody, and I'm worried about him burning Hayden, Sensible, and Burns if Burns plays this game. You can't forget about Crabtree either, but I feel more confident in his matchups as I feel like he drops a lot of balls, and that makes it so I won't even be worried at all when Hayden and Hilton are covering him because he's also not that fast. Unfortunately, though, there will always be worry when Sensible and Burns are in coverage, though. Then really, I feel like they don't have a clear and defined wide receiver 3. Like, Willie Snead is that guy, but, like, I'm not a big fan of his. I think that their third best receiver right now, maybe their running back Buck Allen, or even their newly acquired running back wide receiver Ty Montgomery. I'm just not really a fan of their wideout selection. Speaking of their backs, though, they, in all honesty, haven't been that great on the ground for the Ravens. Collins has a fumbling problem, as we saw in the first matchup, and he's only averaging 3.7 yards a carry. Then Buck Allen is averaging even less at 2.6 yards a carry. not exactly threatening. Montgomery might be their most threatening back at the moment, and we don't even know if that's how the Ravens plan to use him. He may be used more as a wide receiver. We don't really know. Um, I feel like the front seven should handle them pretty well, though. Hargrave has been a beast down the middle, and the middle linebackers have played great together the past few weeks. I don't feel very worried at all about them in this game. As a whole, though, I want to see more turnovers from this defense. This team really isn't forcing enough, so I'm hoping for more than one in this game. I hope that they get at least two. I'm really looking for three, maybe a forced fumble and two interceptions. That would be a big showing for me, because I feel like it's like the last part of the defense that needs to be redefined, where this team could be just good enough to be a pretty solid playoff contender. But anyhow, that really wraps it up for defense. I'm going to quickly go over special teams because we went over it the first time, and it's simple as this. The Ravens special teams severely outmatches the Steelers special teams. The Steelers have 18 special teams penalties. The Ravens have 13. The Ravens have Cook. The Steelers have Berry. The Ravens have Tucker. The Steelers have a question mark in Boswell. They're just completely outmanned, besides maybe at kick and punt returners, as Switzer is better than Jones, Moore, Snead, and Lasley. But that's really it. Now let's get into our keys to the game. For offense, for me, it's going to be keep Ben protected. I know it's a big ask, but if Ben can get the treatment that he's had protection-wise the past few games, he should be able to beat even the Ravens' good corners if he has that amount of time. Then for defense, you got to be causing pressure. It's simple as that. If the defense isn't causing pressure, I'm going to have such a fit following this game on the podcast. This should be not too bad. At least from the outside, there should be getting consistent enough pressure. Now, moving on to X factors, John was actually nice enough to give me his, so I could have his contribution for this game. For offense for him, it's David DeCastro, and for defense, it's Sean Davis. So watch out for those guys. For me, Vance McDonald's my offensive X factor. I think he's likely going to be the most reliable target in this one, making me think he will be the Steelers' biggest difference maker. As for defense, it's Cameron Hayward. It's a question of, is he going to step up and beat up a weaker opponent, or is he going to crumble? Tune in this week and find out, because it's going to be telling on how it shapes the rest of Hayward's season, I believe. So now, let's go to Pick'em for the rest of the league. First off, we're going to start with Thursday Night Football. We actually made our picks on Twitter, and you saw what happened. I think we all saw what happened, and it was very unfortunate for the Raiders. I'm very happy about it. Steelers fans, you should all be happy about it. The Raiders have the highest chance of getting the first overall pick now, and that's good news because the Steelers have the Raiders' 6th round pick, so having the beginning of the 6th round is basically like having the Steelers' 5th round anyway. So that's good. We're hoping for that. But yeah, Nick Mullins came out and is apparently the greatest of all time. We just did not know it. He just absolutely destroyed the Raiders. They won 34-3. I picked the 49ers to cover even knowing that Nick Mullins was starting, because at the time it looked like that was worse off than CJ Beathard. But apparently, again, Nick Mullins is the GOAT, and I got that pick right, and John got it wrong. And I want to rub that in because it's like one of the few times I could say that. Anyway, going on to the rest of the games for the week. Bears at Bills. The Chicago's have 10 points on the road. It was rough for me because it's a road game, but the Bills are bad. The Bills are bad. Their defense played pretty good last week, but I don't think they keep it up. I think the Bears cover. And John mirrored that. He also picked the Bears to cover. Chiefs at Browns. Kansas City only getting 8. That shocked me. I was not prepared for the Chiefs to only get 8. I feel like the Chiefs may be even getting a little disrespected because their weak point is their defense and maybe their special teams, but I still feel like they outmatched the Browns that much. I'm picking the Chiefs to cover, and so does John. I think that I would have probably picked that spread at 10, to be honest with you. Jets at Dolphins. Miami has 3 points. Honestly, I'm going to pick Miami to cover. I went a little bit back and forth, but the Jets are just banged up, and that's basically what I went with. John actually went with the Jets winning, so we'll see how that one plays out. Falcons at Redskins. Washington is getting 1.5 points on the road, and I thought that was disrespectful. I genuinely was confused with the Redskins being home. I thought that they should have at least gotten 3 points, because I feel like the Falcons have done nothing but play underwhelming football. Like, they barely beat out the Giants, and that's really sad. The Falcons, I'm actually starting to believe, are one of the worst teams in football this league. They're definitely in the bottom 16, that's without a doubt. They might just be outside the bottom 10, but they're not a good team nonetheless. And I'm picking the Redskins to cover. John actually has the Falcons winning in an upset. I'm very interested to know why he chose that, but he'll probably be right because I've been wrong most of this year. So watch when that happens. Bucks at Panthers. Carolina is getting 6 points, and that's a lot of points to give this matchup. This matchup always seems to end like 33-30. This whole division, like when they verse each other, ends 33-30, 36-33, 39 to 33, like just a bunch of in the 30s high numbers. And I was really going to pick the Buccaneers +6, but I'm actually going to pick the Buccaneers to win outright. I think that with Ryan Fitzmagic starting, by the way, Ryan Fitzmagic is starting for this game, I think it's going to light another spark under them for at least another week, and I think that they win it outright. John has the Buccaneers +6, and I can totally see why he sees that, because like I said, this division keeps it close and high-scoring affairs. But next up, the Texans at the Broncos. Denver is getting 1 point. They are favored in this one, and that shocked me. I really wasn't expecting that. I feel like the Texans are the better team. The Texans have just won 5 straight. Like, I mean, they weren't against great opponents. They weren't against anyone super good, but, like, I'm just... Denver's really bad, and they just traded Demaryius Thomas to the Texans. And, I mean, I know it's a professional football team, and they're going to change their plays, and they're going to change their game plan and stuff, but I still feel like what Demaryius Thomas could have told them going into this game could be detrimental. And not only that, I think the Broncos are garbage. I think they're bad. Like, even if the Texans didn't get some information from Demaryius Thomas and improve with him as a wide receiver, I just feel like the Texans are destined to win this outright. Like, I'm just surprised that even though it's on the road for the Texans, that they're not favored. Anyway, me and John both had the Texans to win, I think, because I think we both echo that same point. Chargers at Seahawks. Seattle is favored by 1 point at home. I went back and forth with this one, and I looked at one thing, and the Chargers have only lost to 2 teams so far this year. That is the Rams and the Chiefs. And that tells me that the Chargers are a pretty good team, and I'm still not sold on Seattle being better than 9-7. So I'm gonna go with the Chargers winning here. I think it's gonna be a close game though, as the line predicts. But I'm gonna go with the Chargers to win. John actually has the Seahawks winning, and watch it bite me this week. After last week, he convinced me to pick the Seahawks to win, but. Moving on, Rams at Saints, game of the week. I know Sunday Night Football is game of the week for a lot of people, but for me, Rams at Saints is the one I'm looking forward to, and I really wish I got to watch. I'm unfortunately going to be at work for it, but I'm going to pick the Saints to win outright. The Rams are favored by 1.5 points, and I just feel like last week the Rams would have lost if it wasn't for Ty Montgomery, because you're giving Aaron Rodgers the ball with 2 minutes to go, down by you weren't even down by that much. It was just by less than 3 points. You could have won with a field goal. I would have trusted Aaron Rodgers to make it downfield and Mason Crosby to kick it in. So I'm picking the Saints to win out right here because similar to the Packers, they're a high-scoring offense and their defense isn't that good. And so they really just have to be outscoring Todd Gurley and Jared Goff. That's like the goal. I mean, obviously that's the goal for every team, to just outscore the other team. But what my point is, defense doesn't really matter in this matchup to me. I'm thinking that Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are going to be able to handle Jared Goff. I don't even really know who to call their number one receiver. Is their number one receiver Robert Woods, or is their number one receiver Brandon Cooks, or is now Cooper Kupp coming back, make him the number one wide receiver? They're all like really top tier second tier wide receivers. They're top of the second tier, all of them. So I don't really know who to call their number one. I'm going to go with Robert Woods. Regardless, I'm still picking the Saints trio to overcome the Rams trio, even though Todd Gurley is something else. Now we're moving on to Sunday Night Football. A lot of people are looking forward to this. This is only the second meeting between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and it's often talked about who is the better quarterback in their primes, who is the better quarterback, who's going to have a better career by the end of their careers. The Patriots are getting 5.5 points, and I personally am taking the Packers plus 5.5. I just think that the Packers are going to keep it close. I think Patriots are going to win it anyway, but I think the Packers could put up a good fight like they did last week. And John is actually taking the Patriots to cover, so that's something interesting. By the way, John picks the Saints to win outright as well. I don't know if I said that, so I just want to make that clarify for the previous game. Now, finally, we're going to Monday Night Football, and this is a snooze fest. The Titans at the Cowboys. It's just the Cowboys have 5.5 points at home. I don't like this game is gonna just be bad, and it's just gonna feel bad to anyone watching. I saw it and I was like, wow, this is terrible. But I'm gonna pick the Titans to win outright. I don't really have a good reason. The Titans have played really terrible the past few weeks, and I don't know. I'm picking them to turn it around here. John is taking the Cowboys to cover and win big. The Titans, like the Dolphins, were a complete mirage. They suck. Those were his exact words. So, I agree. I just think that Dallas sucks too. So, I'm gonna give the Titans a win there. Anyway, that wraps up our pick'em section. So we're gonna move on to NFL news here. The Raiders are really, really, really wanting that number one pick. It's almost like they want an elite pass rusher because they've been missing one. It's looking like they might be getting Nick Bosa because they obviously just dropped big to the 49ers, who are not a good team, and they just released Bruce Irvin, and they mishandled releasing him too. Not only are they just a bad football team, they told him he was being released and wasn't on the NFL's waiver wire, which means that he has to wait till Monday to be officially released. So he's going to have to sit through the game inactive likely. I mean, because if they played him, that would be even more awkward. But he's just got to stick with the team now because the Raiders can't do anything properly. They're really just a bad team. But don't worry, only 9.5 more years of John Gruden. You'll be good. Elsewhere in the NFL, the Cardinals have released quarterback Sam Bradford, massively overpaid and for 3 games. He's likely to clear waivers. Him and Bruce Irvin are likely to clear waivers and become free agents because of their big contracts. Sam Bradford, I highly expect is going to be going to the Bills. I think that the Bills need more quarterback depth at the moment because their quarterbacks are really bad. So I'm sure Bradford is going to end up there if I were to take a guess. But that really wraps up our NFL news. Now let's get back into the game, and we're going to get into bold predictions. I'm going to start with John's. John's is that Cody Sensabaugh gets a pick 6, and that his second one is Steelers go over 150 yards rushing. Then for me, I'm going to predict that Vance McDonald has a touchdown of over 50 yards. I just think that he's going to be big in this game. And then also, another one of my predictions is that Cameron Hayward gets 2 sacks and 4 quarterback hits total. And then finally, I wanted to show some love to special teams. I felt like I've never made a bold prediction for special teams, so I'm going to say Boswell hits a field goal of over 54 yards. And obviously that's bold because as long as 52, that's over 13 yards. If he hits a 55-yarder, that's over 15 yards more than what his 13 yards. Wow, I can't do math. I'm sorry. 13 yards more than what his high currently is for this year. But now moving on to final score prediction. The Steelers at the Ravens. The Ravens are favored by 3 points at home, and it's going to be close. This game usually tends to be. It tends to be low scoring. Most of the time, it's been a little bit shaky the past few years with not low scoring games, but I'm going to pick the Steelers to win 24-23. I think they win outright. I think it's a very close game, and just it's going to be in the trenches. This is going to be super, super hard hitting and a really good matchup, I think. Now, John, I think John echoed that it's going to be a close game and picked the Steelers to win as well, 31-30. Very close game from both of us. We both think it's going to be a 1-point game. So, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. It's going to be a fun game, I think we both think. Hopefully the Steelers win it, but that wraps it up today for the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions, email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com, and then check out our social media. I'll put the links in the description below. So everybody, please go check those out. And everybody, have a good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.